gracias a él. Así que, bueno, les pido se preparen y en un momentito más que nos traigan los micrófonos, ya los voy a pasar. Allá viene. Le voy a dar entonces la palabra a Aaron. Aaron, please.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back. This is, I know, a challenging time of the day. This is where lunch sets in and you need to go get some more coffee. I have my extra coffee and I speak way too quickly as it is. I got lots of feedback during the break. Good presentation. Slow down. I will try to do that this afternoon. This is going to be much less formal. This presentation, hopefully I can ask lots of questions of you. I'm going to have you discuss those answers with the people you're sitting next to. Maybe you know them, maybe they'll become a new friend and colleague, maybe there'll be someone that you can create, maybe a content with at some point in your life, who knows. But we'll have some time for you to listen to me, you will have time to ask questions to each other, to give responses to each other. And then we'll also have time later on for you to ask questions of me that I can respond to. So at that point, we'll have the microphones being passed around, but we'll save that for a little bit later. This is designed to be a 2-hour session, which is quite a long time to sit, so that's why I want you to be active. It's also designed as a workshop, which is a little bit difficult to do in a room like this. It also turns out that my internet connection keeps going in and out. So I've made some last minute changes to be able to do this without access to the internet. So some of the slides will be a little bit boring because I had to make them very quickly. But that will be okay. We'll have a good conversation about this. So feel free again to relax. I don't want to do all of the talking, but I do want to give you a few more ideas about this concept of the flipped classroom. And we're going to use this idea of 4 T's. So 4 words that start with the letter T. And this is how we're going to talk about what is necessary in order for you to flip your classroom. So some of these will be kind of ideas and concepts. Some of these things will be very specific tools and very specific practices that you can use as well. But we'll use these 4 T's to frame our conversation. So first is, let's take a look at these words. We're going to have to change our thinking about education. We're going to have to talk about technology, what's necessary to do this. We're going to have to talk about time, because there is a time commitment. But there's a different part of time that we'll talk about that you may not have thought about yet. Then we'll talk about the idea of training and actually getting some help in learning how to do this, and places you can go for resources, and places you can go for ideas. So if you came to my last session, you got a little bit of a look at that and a few places you can go for ideas. But let's talk first about thinking. Now, the first hour session, I talked a lot about how we have to think differently about school. We have to think differently about the role of educators, and we have to think differently about the role of education and learning. So, most schools that I work with very much focus on content, on the material that students need to learn. Now, sometimes that material is based on state or national standards. Sometimes this material will be tested by the state or by the country. Sometimes the countries are compared to other countries with standardized benchmark tests. And as a result, now I'm not against those tests, I'm not against those standards, but I think what it's done is it's pushed us to the place where we focus too much on content, on the material to be taught, on the instruction. And we've done that, and the relationships of learning have been lessened, and we've had to sacrifice those. And the part of learning that I think is most important is curiosity. That internal motivation that causes somebody to want to learn something new. That causes a young person to want to get as much information and to apply as much of that to what they're working on as possible. So if this is where most education institutions around the world are at, I would like to see it look more like this. where all three of these things, content, curiosity, and relationships, are in a balance in every school and every classroom. So let's look first at relationships. Relationships are extremely important in learning. To be honest, I don't think learning can take place outside of a relationship. One of the reasons why physical locations of learning, why school buildings are important, is because it is a place for us to go where we have a community of learning that's taking place, and in that community, we can build these relationships. Relationships from the teacher to the student, from the students to the students, and from teachers to teachers. Healthy relationships where we interact with each other and we learn from each other. So the problem, if we focus too much on relationships, then we all feel very good about ourselves. We all get along wonderfully, but we haven't learned anything. And I don't want that to happen. So we can't focus too much on relationships, but relationships are extremely important to create a community of learning in which learning can happen. Next thing is our content. Now content, we talked about, if we focus too much on it, all we have is just dry, boring memorization of material. And you can learn some things from that, and there is some benefit to that. But if we focus only on that, our schools are very cold. They're not places that children want to go. They're not places where adults want to go, because all it is content delivery and content recitation. And content is important. Math problems have an answer. 3 plus 3 equals 6. That has an answer. People need to know how to come up with that answer. But they need to do that within the context of relationships. And hopefully they do that within the context of an environment where they can explore their own curiosity about learning. One of the challenges we have as educators is getting students inspired to want to learn more. We can tell them you need to learn how to read, but if they don't see the reason they need to learn how to read, they're less likely to want to do it. We can tell students you need to learn biology, but if they don't know why they should learn biology, or they don't even find it interesting, then they're not going to want to learn it. And we can make them learn it. We can say, read these pages, do these problems, and you get a letter grade, you get a score on that. And then that score goes on a report card, and based on your scores, that will determine where you get to go to college. And we can create these artificial means to get people to want to learn. But the best kind of learning comes from inside when somebody wants to learn something new. So we as teachers can create environments that fosters curiosity, that creates things that students will see and they will say, I want to learn more about that. And video is a great way to inspire curiosity for students. So I've talked a lot about using video as an instructional tool, but using video as something to ignite curiosity is just as powerful. So you don't have to deliver a lesson through video, but maybe you can show them something that gets students excited to want to learn more. So there's a group who has done this very well, and the organization is called TED, and they have an education division, and .TED.com. And what they've done is they've taken lessons written by teachers, they've recorded those lessons, and they've hired professional animators to animate the lessons. They turn them into a cartoon, into an animation. They're wonderful, they're brilliant, but they're not designed as a teaching tool to deliver content. They're designed to inspire students to want to learn more. So video is a great tool for that. We have a learning community that can inspire curiosity, that can develop relationships, and that can deliver content. And students can have exposure to all of these things, and I think they are all essential to good quality learning. And I really believe that a flipped classroom can help enhance each one of these three. So my last presentation, I spoke mostly about this flipped classroom concept, but I want to transition our thinking into something that I'll refer to now as flipped learning. So when we think flipped classroom, we think comprehensive, entire course is being taught using video. And then the class time is used for other things. And that's one way to implement this. But this idea of flipped learning is maybe not so much as a comprehensive approach, but maybe as a tool or a technique that a teacher can use when it's appropriate. So I know teachers, maybe teachers who teach small children, who might flip 5 lessons in 1 year. That's all they did. 5 key lessons that were extremely important, lessons that they knew that if the students did not understand those 5 things, they would not understand anything else for the rest of the year. There are other teachers who have flipped all of their lessons. I made 100 chemistry videos in 1 year. That was crazy. Don't do that. No one in their right mind would make 100 videos in 1 year and try to do that entire class, except for me. It's crazy. Don't do it. Find what's going to be right for you. Maybe you do want to take a comprehensive approach. Maybe you want to do a few lessons. So this idea of flipped learning is going to make this more of a flexible tool for teachers to leverage. Okay, so I want you to think about one question, and I want to drive the rest of our day with this one question. And that question is, what is the best use of your face-to-face time? What is the best use of your face-to-face time with students? When the students are in your classroom, when you have them for that very short period of time in the day, how can you maximize the time that you have with them? I asked myself this question. I said, what is the best use of my class time? And I actually answered this question with the negative. I said, the best use of my class time is not to tell my students new information. The best use of my class time is to help my students go deep and understand what they have already been taught. So that's why I committed to using video as an instructional tool. But then what that forced me to do is to say, okay, now that I've answered this in a negative, and I have removed the direct instruction onto video, what am I going to do instead? So it completely reshaped the way I operated in my classroom. But what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to do all the things that I always wanted to do as a science teacher. Science projects, inquiry-based learning, project-based learning, all the things that I knew I wanted to do, but I never could figure it out or why. So here's what I want to do, and I'm going to walk around a lot this time, so hopefully I don't get in front of the speakers and get weird feedback, but I want you to turn to the people sitting next to you, so maybe talk to 1 or 2 people nearby, and I want you to answer this question. If you could do any activity or lesson with your students, what would it be? Anything at all. If you didn't have curriculum, if you didn't have standards, if you didn't have any requirements at all by the school, by the state, by the government, anything like that, you could do anything you wanted in your classroom, what would it be? Take 2 minutes, and I'm going to time you to answer that question with your colleagues. So, meet the people next to you, introduce yourself.